was the time we experienced without Article 23 legislation. It's been 27 years since we've returned to the motherland. We were unable to stop the Mongkok riot, the illegal Occupy Central movement, and other violent acts. Anti-China forces and elements were not caught by the law, and taxpayers' money was spent on grooming these anti-China forces. External forces kept disrupting the city, and there was nothing we could do. We should not repeat the painful experience. We should ensure stable business environment. We have to safeguard people's property. This is the purpose of legislating for Article 23. Deputy President, we experienced chaos in the past, and this allows people to realize the importance of safeguarding prosperity and stability of Hong Kong. There was the Jimmy Lai's case. For forces that try to endanger national security, they caused chaos and panic among our society. And we have seen the benefits of the Hong Kong national security law since its promulgation. Therefore, we have strong consensus that we must legislate for Article 23, and the Chief Executive as well as the SAR government have the duty to complete the legislative exercise. We have to resolutely support the legislative exercise. The bill protects the rights of people, and at the same time it guards against any acts endangering national security. It helps protect investment and property, as well as respect human rights. It is in line with the law of Hong Kong as well as rule of law, including the principle of presumption of innocence as well as double jeopardy. There are stringent laws, but at the same time, there are clear provisions for extraterritorial effect, and it provides offences. It protects the interest of law-abiding people as well as normal business exchanges. There are views that we are rushing through the legislative exercise. However, I think that we have waited for some 27 years now. In 2020, the MPCSE endorsed the May 28th decision. It's been 4 years, and the SAR government has been working hard to refine the provisions, and there was sufficient public consultation, and we got 98% of support on the bill. The views reflected during the public consultation were included in the bill, and there were 46 hours of discussion on the bill. There were reasonable amendments proposed. It was prudent, it was a detailed process, and it is totally in line with the pace as well as the procedures that we have to go through for legislation in Hong Kong. I believe the bill can achieve convergence and compatibility with the Hong Kong NSL, and it protects people's livelihood. Thank you. Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Deputy President, Article 23 of the Basic Law says that it is our duty to enact our own law under Article 23, and we have 98% of support during the public consultation. In 2019, during Black Letter Violence, I launched a press conference with workers who were affected. We asked for short-term support. However, afterwards, no workers were able to stepped forward to speak for themselves because they were threatened and intimidated, because they were unwilling to join the strike. The basic law protects people's freedom, but workers back then lost the freedom and rights to speak for themselves. I belong to some work unions, and we saw that some work unions were controlled by foreign forces, and they were asked to take part in strikes. This bill covers offences in relation to sabotage, endangering national security, as well as organizations endangering national security. International work unions can be defined as international organizations endangering national security. However, one has to prove that such organizations use improper means to interfere with the city and endanger national security in order to breach the law. Normal exchanges would be exempted. Work unions should set guidelines for their workers and members. If we're aware that there are international organizations that endanger national security, well, local labor unions should have the responsibility to cut ties with these international organizations to prevent any external interference. There are also amendments to provisions in relation to collusion. And also there were provisions that included the words of Crown or Your Majesty were obviated. Some of the provisions, however, were retained, and this shows that workers' rights and freedoms to participate in unions are protected under the Basic Law. Labor unions should not be interfered by external forces. Since the promulgation of the Hong Kong National Security Law, organizations that endanger national security have disbanded. Some of the members from the disbanded organizations now take part in existing unions. It is believed that with the passage of this bill, the FLU or the HKCTU will be able to serve its purpose and bring people from Hong Kong from chaos to stability, and will be able to ensure steadfast implementation of one country, two systems. I so submit.
Ms. Chan Ho-Yan, thank you, Deputy President. It's a significant task. There are 9 parts covering 181 clauses of the bill. I can see the Bills Committee was very strict and serious while scrutinizing the bill. The secretaries and secretary of departments, while answering members' questions, did not only think from the perspective of administration. Instead, they think from the perspective of protecting the public and striking a balance between safeguarding national security and protecting human rights. They do so from this perspective. I can also see the necessity of legislating for Article 23. This is also the best response to the backlash against Article 23 legislation. For such an important piece of legislation, should we spend even longer time to scrutinize this bill? I'd like to respond this in 2 points. We shouldn't use the length of the scrutiny to judge whether the scrutiny is good or not. It shouldn't be the only yardstick. Policy discussion is all about quality instead of quantity. While I was serving as a reporter and official, there was much filibustering. There were very long hours of discussion of contents. The discussion was not of high quality. It results in a waste of public money, but there wasn't any constructive output. On the background and the contents of the bill, the Safeguarding National Security legislation is to overcome the existing shortcomings. For example, for a vessel, we should ensure its safety. Not all clauses are novel. There are provisions that have been deliberated, discussed, and explained. After social turbulence, the public has greater public awareness about national security, so the Council scrutinized the bill at full pelt. This is without question. The bill has a wider scope, including espionage, succession, treason, and so on. I hope members of the public will spend more time listening to the discussion of the Bills Committee. It shows that members of the public will not have their rights infringed. Instead, their rights will be protected by the bill. The prosecutorial situations or scenarios will check whether there is any criminal intention. For example, possession of publications with seditious intention. The prosecution needs to prove the mens rea before a defendant can be convicted. One will not be caught just because one is in possession of a publication at home. One of the provisions is to protect public transport infrastructures. I believe you all have vivid memory. During Black Clad violence, stores were damaged, they were vandalized, the Legislative Council was damaged, public roads were obstructed, traffic was paralyzed. In Kowloon Tong, a thoroughfare was obstructed. It not only affects residents in the vicinity, a hospital nearby was also affected. Patients were also affected. It shows negative impact on livelihood. Society was polarized. Society was in chaos. The last Article 23 legislation experience made it like a taboo. Some demonize work in relation to safeguarding national security. Some even use extreme words to describe it. But the Black Clad violence reflected the fact that we need to safeguard national security only when we have the relevant safeguarding national security law. That is how we can foster social harmony and peace. That's how we can improve livelihood. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank members of the Bills Committee, officials, as well as the Secretariat of the Council. I'd like to thank you all. I know that the Secretariat has done its level best to help the Bills Committee to scrutinize the bill. That's why the scrutiny of the bill was completed seamlessly. The Black Hat violence was the darkest period in Hong Kong's history. In 2024, we can definitely start once again. We can have a peaceful start. That's how we can scale new heights. Dr. Johnny Ng. Thank you, Deputy President. As President Xi said, national security is the foundation of the rejuvenation of the people. National security paves the way for the strength of the country. We need to safeguard national security and social stability. This is unquestionable. Safeguarding national security is the constitutional duty of Hong Kong and is the foundation of the principle of one country, two systems. I traveled out of Hong Kong, so did some members, in order to complete Article 23 legislation. It has been due for 27 years. I feel very honored to be able to take part in this task. In fact, in society, there's been discussion of 20 years. There's been sufficient social consensus in the with the improved district governance with Hong Kong society moving from chaos to order and from stability to prosperity, we are going to see national security. If there is insufficient explanatory work, people from the West may misunderstand the Article 23 legislation. They didn't understand the legislative intent, so the administration should do the explanatory work. The contents need to be clear, targeted. They should hold as many sessions as possible. In the community, it is said that Article 23 legislation will deter investors from coming to Hong Kong. We need to clear up misunderstandings. We need to squash the rumors. We need to develop local economy so that the international community can see that safeguarding national security law will further promote the principle of one country, two systems. This can also help international investors to come to Hong Kong for investment. It can provide a springboard for them to come to Hong Kong. It can also attract more enterprises to come to Hong Kong for investment. Internally, we need to step up publicity and education about Article 23 legislation so the public will develop in the legislative intent of Article 23. It shows the necessity of Article 23 legislation. It shows that the value of the legislation has been demonized and undermined. We need to step up civic education and publicity. We need to enable the public to know more about the legislative intent of Article 23 legislation and its benefits on society. For example, it can help stabilize the Hong Kong economy, improve the livelihood in the economy. It can also offer protection to different aspects of Hong Kong. It can helps with the steadfast and successful implementation of one country, two systems. I am glad to have a special council meeting today. With the efforts of members of the council, we can we can finish the scrutiny of Article 23 legislation. It's key to the social harmony and social stability. I speak in support of the implementation of Article 23 legislation. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffrey Lam, thank you, Deputy President. Now, this is a big day as we resume the second reading of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. We've waited 27 years. So with so many twists and turns, finally we're on the home stretch to legislating for Article 23. This is an emotional moment for me. Now, it is our constitutional duty to legislate for Article 23, but since the reunification for 27 years, we've never handed in our homework. In particular, in 2003, the bill was withdrawn, and then the exercise was shelved for some 20 years. That's why there is this gap in safeguarding national security. It's been taken advantage of by anti-China forces. Now, we've had the painful lesson of the 2019 Black Flag violence. The committee has come to realize that we need to plug the loophole in safeguarding national security as soon as possible, so there is sufficient public support for the bill. I'm glad to see that the new term of this government has taken up this duty, and it's proceeded with speed to table the bill for our scrutiny. It shows that the government team is competent and it has commitment and courage. Now, we've had marathon meetings in the past week. Members considered each and every clause carefully. We considered all the details. We were prudent in our scrutiny. We also considered different scenarios in relation to the clauses. The officials, including the Secretary for Justice and the Secretary for Security, tried to answer all our questions, and that helped to allay many of the concerns of the business sector. I'm sure many people are now more assured. Now, there are 9 parts to the bill. The government has explained each and every part carefully. It has also proposed amendments, and I believe the bill is now clearer, and there are clear definitions for different offences, and the offences are reasonable, and also there's due consideration given to protecting the normal business activities and international exchanges, as Hong Kong is a international financial and business center. And then the members put forward various concrete suggestions. For example, I have suggested financial infrastructure to be covered under the definition of public infrastructure. And then for external interference, it's now amended to external interference endangering national security. As for academic exchanges, business exchanges, and other normal exchanges, they will not be regarded as external interference. I believe such amendments and clarifications are important for Hong Kong as an international financial and business center. It is so important for protecting the business environment of Hong Kong. And now these amendments have addressed and allayed many of the concerns of the business sector. If you look around the world, different countries give top priority to safeguarding national security. The US and the UK have legislation that's far harsher than that in Hong Kong. And also they keep updating their legislation to make it even harsher. Now, but for geopolitical reasons, I believe for some time to come, there will be people who will attack our bill and who will make false statements. So this is necessary for the government to refute all these smearing as soon as possible. And there's also a need to explain the bill further to the community and to overseas community so that everyone knows about the content and spirit of the bill. Now, at this historic moment, I am privileged to be a part of it. I believe the Legislative Council, the SAO government, and the community who have all worked so hard in Hong Kong will have this strong firewall to safeguard national security. And after we complete our historic duty to legislate for Article 23 in future, everyone in Hong Kong must work together to develop our economy and improve people's livelihood. So I resolutely support the Safeguarding National Security Bill, I so speak. Dr. Kennedy Wong. Deputy President, in accordance with Article 23 of the Basic Law and the 528 MPC decision, the Hong Kong SAR shall enact law on its own to protect the sovereignty and development interest of the country. This is a constitutional duty of the Hong Kong SAR. It is also the duty of every citizen in Hong Kong. The country cares much for Hong Kong. In the 1960s, the Dongjiang water supply construction works were started to supply water to Hong Kong. And then our economic development was a result of the opening up and reform of the country in the past 4 decades and so. And then before the and after the reunification, the country is like a mother to us. It takes special care of us. It gives us the various supporting measures to. Whenever Hong Kong encounters difficulties, the country will always give a helping hand. Now, that's the case with the Asian financial crisis, the financial tsunami, the SARS epidemic, and so on. The country helped Hong Kong to fight off the speculators, and then also during SARS, medication and personnel were sent to Hong Kong to help us. And then with economic development, the CEPA was signed, that is the Closer Economic Partnership Agreement. And then there's some promotion of GBA development, and the country also gives support for Hong Kong to become an international and innovation and technology center, and also there's some further support for Hong Kong to integrate into national development. So there is strong support from the country. This ensures the stability and prosperity of Hong Kong. Without the support of the country, we won't see Hong Kong as it is now. Now, we are in sea changes in the world. It's unseen for a century. And there are wars everywhere, and some are really suffering. And these scenes remind us we must have a safe country for our home to be safe. The country is given so much support and assistance to Hong Kong. So shouldn't we help the country to build a firewall and to put in locks here in Hong Kong so that national security will not be endangered? Now, I'm a member of the Bills Committee and subcommittee before that. We had over 20 meetings for over 50 hours. We considered each and every clause with great care. I was participated all the way. I spoke for over 60 times, and I proposed some amendments and suggestions. The administration took on board members' views and suggestions, and amendments were proposed. So there are now clearer definitions for key offences and terms. That a good balance is struck, and it will ensure that national security is safeguarded while at the same time we protect the legitimate rights and interests of the public. We will keep a free and open society here in Hong Kong. Now, for example, external interference as an offence, there must be the element of external forces. At the same time, there must be the intention to interfere. And also improper means must have been used, so there are three elements before the offence is established. That's why the average citizens would not be caught by the law. And then misafection to treason. Again, this is now codified. Misprision of treason, this is now codified, so it gives clearer definition to the offence. As for legal professional privilege and other religious privilege and so on, so this will not be affected in relation to offences of state secrets. Now, I must thank the administration for taking on board on one of my suggestions, that is for all public officers and departments responsible for safeguarding national security. Well, these public officers must facilitate the work of any departments or individuals involved in safeguarding national security. Now, everyone has the duty to safeguard national security, and is all the more the case for civil servants. This is for protecting the fundamental interests of the country and us. So I speak fully in support of the bill.
Mr. Lee Chun-ko, Deputy President, we have to ensure security and stability in our homes. Well, a home with lots of disputes will not give a sense of well-being to its family members. A society with turmoils, again, will not ensure our sense of well-being. I support the bill, and I think we have to, with reference to other common law jurisdictions, support the legislative exercise. I have to thank the 25 members of the Bills Committee who helped scrutinize the bill. I see that a lot of people have been giving their support in the back office, and this is all done to ensure the smooth completion of the legislative exercise. This will help enhance our legal system. Well, this assignment has been overdue for 27 years. So at this point, I'm excited as other members of this council. The Jimmy Lai case has been reported recently, and a lot of evidence has been adduced in the court. I believe a lot of members of the general public feel frightened with the evidence that has been adduced. We learned that Jimmy Lai has been getting support from the foreign forces to disrupt the order of Hong Kong. He, with premeditation, tried to prejudice the national security of Hong Kong, and also we saw that there were external interference, and there were acts that intend to beautify the acts of Jimmy Lai, and there were coercion and pressure exerted by foreign powers. All these show that it is important for us to legislate for Article 23. We have to have preventive measures to cope with the use of new technology by foreign powers to endanger national security of Hong Kong and our country. We have to guard against all these powers. I thank the amendments proposed by the government. This includes giving the power to the chief executive in council to make subsidiary legislations. Any breaches of these subsidiary legislations can lead to 7 years of jail terms or $500,000 of fine. All these are put in place to ensure that we can safeguard our national security. There are also newly introduced offences in the bill. Anyone who tries to damage public infrastructure will violate the law. This reminds me of the experience we had in 2019. Back then, a lot of rioters committed acts of arson. They threw petrol bombs on streets and they damaged properties, shops, as well as MTR stations, which harmed people's lives. And we all have this vivid memory of the Black Cat violence. Let's imagine if rioters disrupted, for instance, container terminals or substations. It would be unimaginable. Therefore, I support all these provisions to be included into the bill to protect the public infrastructure in Hong Kong. Also, there were provisions that stipulate that the Secretary for Security had to wait for 6 months to specify someone as specified person or as absconders to cancel their passport. I agree that the 6-month limit should be lifted because it would give time to absconders to take part in anti-China activities after they've left Hong Kong. Lastly, I'd like to stress that safety and security is a foundation or prerequisite for stability and prosperity. Over 98% of people supported the bill during public consultation. It shows that everyone in Hong Kong understands the importance of this legislative exercise. I believe after the passage of the bill, the ordinance will achieve convergence and compatibility with the Hong Kong NSL, and that we can better ensure the prosperity and stability of Hong Kong, and then we can create a better business environment to show that we have the appeal as the Pearl of Orient. Also, we can further protect the legitimate interests of people, and we can ensure successful implementation of one country, two systems. Then we can focus our efforts on reviving our economy and improving people's livelihood so that we can better integrate ourselves into the national development. I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Jimmy Ng, I'd like to commend the high efficient work of the government, and over 1,000 questions have been raised during the hours of meetings that the Bills Committee had. This shows that the executive branch worked hand in hand with the legislature, and this also shows the importance of the legislative exercise. During public consultation, foreign governments smeared the bill, and also journalists from overseas also criticized the bill. These people had the ulterior motives to disrupt Hong Kong, and this shows that it is more important for us to finish the legislative exercise. We saw the failed attempt to legislate for Article 23 back in 2003. Since then, there have been foreign powers and external forces that tried to disrupt the order of Hong Kong. On the 30th of June 2020, the Hong Kong NSL was promulgated in Hong Kong. While we have put in place further security barrier in our city, we have yet to plug the security loophole. This time around, we're trying to enforce the security barrier, and this helps plug the loophole. This is the constitutional order or duty of our city. With changing international landscape, we have to legislate for Article 23 to ensure long-term prosperity of Hong Kong. This will create a better and safer investment environment for foreign investors. It is our duty to defend our home. It is our duty and responsibility. In the UK, they have at least 40 national security laws, and in the US, there are at least 20 national security laws. All countries or places will, based on their actual circumstances, enact national security laws. This particular bill has taken into account of our own circumstances, and we've also made reference to the practices overseas. In this bill, it adheres to the principle of protecting human rights, and it adheres to the basic law as well as the two international covenants to protect human rights and freedoms. While it strives to safeguard national security, it also balances the needs to protect people's rights. For instance, in relation to the detention period of suspects, the police would have to ensure that it has justifications and grounds to extend the detention period of absconders of suspects. This shows that human rights are protected. Also, during the scrutiny of the bill, the administration respected the views of members and it strived to improve the provisions. For instance, it repealed the 6-month limit on specifying absconders, and this allows room for the Secretary for Security to pursue absconders. The 13 people who are wanted on the list that violated national security are still at large. Therefore, we should not be too lenient to these absconders. The relevant provisions deserve our support. Indeed, Article 23 legislation will help stabilize our city. The earlier we finish the legislative exercise, the earlier we can put in place a security barrier. Then we can complete the assignments that's been overdue for 27 years. We've got 98% of positive feedback from the community during the public consultation on the legislative proposal. Therefore, it is now prime time for us to legislate for Article 23, and we have carefully considered the bill already. Then, with the legislative exercise, we can advance from stability to prosperity. I speak in support of the bill. Thank you.
Ms. Chen Yunming, thank you, Deputy President. I thank members of the Council for scrutinizing the bill. Amendments were moved. The report was compiled so that the Council can resume the second reading debate of this bill. I speak in support of the bill. In relation to local legislation of Article 23, Hong Kong has been waiting for 27 years. I'm honored to witness this significant time as a member of the 7th session of the Legislative Council. National security has been a shortcoming of national security. With the Hong Kong National Security Law, it provides a major legislative framework. The contents highlight the perspective of safeguarding national security, so social stability has been restored. So Hong Kong can move from chaos to order. As many legal scholars and experts have said, Hong Kong National Security Law does not replace Article 23 of the Basic Law. On the one hand, the National Security Law does not cover all 7 kinds of acts under Article 23 of the Basic Law. It also emphasizes that Hong Kong SAR should finish as soon as possible the legislation of safeguarding national security law. This bill is conducive to the future development of Hong Kong, and it paves the way for Hong Kong to move from chaos to order. When we take a look at the bill and amendments, we can see it comprises 9 parts, a total of 181 clauses. It is comprehensive and it covers different types of legislation, including procedural law. For example, in Article 23, it only mentions treason, but in the bill, it divides treason into 4 different categories of offenses. Similar categorization is seen in other subclauses. The penalty does not exceed that in other overseas common law jurisdictions either. This bill continues to be in line with the 2 international covenants, so it is a fair and open safeguarding national security law. I'm pleased to see that the bill enhances legislation in relation to safeguarding national security. Unavoidably, it's all about the compatibility and complementarity between common law and the safeguarding national security law. We spend time scrutinizing the clauses of the bill, including the procedures and prosecutorial procedures. It helps the convergence of the local legislation and the bill. Right now, we are in the middle of the geopolitical tensions. It affects different areas. This bill actually helps us guard against the risks that may crop up in the future, be they traditional or not. All citizens of Hong Kong and the administration should also shoulder this responsibility for safeguarding national security. I believe this can offer better protection for safeguarding national security and ensure the long-term stability and prosperity of Hong Kong. Thank you, Deputy President. Mr. Michael Tian. When I speak up, I will keep coughing. It's a historical day today. After the Hong Kong National Security Law, we are in a new situation right now. Article 23 legislation is our constitutional duty. It's a historical mission. We are not only contributing to national security, but then we are actually completing a task that should have been done much earlier after reunification. I can say that we see the successful implementation of all articles in Basic Law. The opposition camp has been slinging mud at Article 23 legislation, so people have great misunderstandings about 23 legislation. The opposition camp would have caused damage or chaos in the council if they were here. This will form a vicious cycle, and this will make legislation even more difficult. In the last election, because of Hong Kong NSL, order was restored. Even with the Hong Kong NSL, Hong Kong legislation was still not completed. We still need to plug the last gap. Back then, there were views that we already had Hong Kong national security law, and we didn't need to push forward Article 23 legislation. Personally, I'm against this view. When there is resistance, there is opposition. There is also opposition when there is no resistance. So that means there is no the best time to take forward Article 23 legislation. So I put it into my manifesto. The community was afraid that people would sling mud at Article 23 legislation, and I have the following responses. Even with Hong Kong NSL, we still have the constitutional duty to legislate for Article 23. There is overlapping of the scope, but there are also different scopes. The two of them will make a complete system. Article 23 legislation is never an issue of whether we should do it. It's about when we should do it. When is the best time? It's when citizens of Hong Kong feel that national security is at risk. The last time we failed because we were not alive to national security risks. We didn't feel the risks. That was why there were misunderstandings. But Hong Kong was in a dark period back then. So people of Hong Kong felt that actually national security risks were everywhere. They were taking all opportunities to affect Hong Kong. They could affect Hong Kong in such a way that we can't control. These risks are intangible and they are widespread. Many friends and family members were on sour terms, so we really need to get grips with this problem. The public actually agreed with me, so they supported my manifesto. Right now, we are in rational policy discussion in the Council. We can reason with one another. We do not have to speak up. We don't have to shout at each other. In the government public consultation document, I'm more concerned about state secrets. After all, as a legislator, I'm in touch with a lot of government information. Will it be state secrets in order to enhance transparency? Will I be breaking the law? Through different channels such as ante-chamber discussion, exchange session, Bills Committee, one of the important elements is that it is likely to endanger national security, so that we can tell which one comes with good intention and which one comes with ulterior motive. So there is no problem or no issue of people breaking law inadvertently. Right now, it's the start of Article 23 legislation. The administration needs to step up publicity and education efforts. I so submit Deputy President and speak in support of the bill, as well as all amendments.
Mr. Kenneth Lau. Deputy President, I'm glad that we are here to resume the second reading debate of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. We can then fully implement the constitutional duty as required under the Article 23 of the Basic Law, the 528 decision, and the Hong Kong NSL. Now, since the first reading of the bill, the Bills Committee held meetings for 7 days. There were over 22 meetings and over 40 hours of deliberations. I am grateful to officials and colleagues of the Secretariat and members as well. Of course, we all worked very hard day and night, and there was full support from the Legislative Council Secretary, so we are able to take this bill back to this council with great speed and efficiency. Now, I'm not a member of the Bills Committee, but then every day I follow the meeting attentively. And during the deliberations, the members of the Bills Committee put forward views and suggestions on improving upon the bill. They put forward concrete suggestions. The administration gave a detailed explanation of the clauses to members and the public. There's also clarification of misunderstanding of the clauses. The administration also took on board many of the views of the Bills Committee. The administration put forward over 40 amendments to the bill. The whole scrutiny process was efficient and rigorous. It showed that there is a positive exchanges and interaction between the legislature and the executive. Now, Hong Kong is an international financial center and trade center. We are one of the most open economies in the world. We have our unique way of life, so Hong Kong is vulnerable to sabotage and infiltration by foreign forces. Now, compared to the US, UK, Canada, and so on, they have a huge body of laws to regulate various offences and acts in relation to national security. And then our country, and here in Hong Kong, we have just this bill, and the definitions are less harsh, and the penalties are also less harsh compared to the laws in Western countries. And the aim is to protect human rights, respect human rights and freedoms. We give play to the two international covenants on political and civil rights, as well as economic, social, and cultural rights, while safeguarding national security. And now, there's much concern about the disclosure of information and possession of state secrets. The bill gives clear definition. It says that all the materials must fall into 7 categories of state secrets. And then there's also the element of disclosure without lawful authority. And then it has to endanger national security before this is considered a state secret. So if someone has no intention to endanger national security, then he needs to worry about being caught by the law inadvertently. And then for external interference, the Act must have the intention of causing interference involving foreign forces, and there must be improper means used. So there are 3 elements. Now, for someone who conducts a business in Hong Kong or who runs any organizations, they certainly cannot meet all these 3 conditions, so that's why they need not worry about breaking the law in this respect. Now, I'm a member of the 7th Legislative Council, and at this very historic moment, I share in the duty to hand in this to complete this exercise as 27 years overdue. I feel very much honored. On behalf of the Hung Yi Kok and all 800,000 indigenous residents living outside Hong Kong and also indigenous residents living in Hong Kong, I fully support the passage of the bill to safeguard the national interest and development. And also Hong Kong could then focus on economic development and improving people's livelihood. I speak in support of the passage of the bill.
Mr. Ben Chan, Deputy. Enactment of local legislation to implement Article 23 of the Basic Law is the constitutional duty of the Hong Kong SAR government. The government hasn't been able to do so since the return to the motherland 27 years ago. Now is a historic moment. I'd like to cast my vote in support of this bill. I feel honored to be part of this historic mission. The DAB is of the view that Article 23 legislation should be completed as soon as possible to plug national security loopholes. But of course, we are not so naive as to believe that this will call a halt to all national security risks. We still need the joint efforts of all sectors of the community and the public. Now, as the administration puts it, Article 23 is the window with locks, and we prevent robbers from committing burglary, and we need to plug security loopholes to stop anti-China destabilizing forces from meddling with our affairs and posing risks to our country and Hong Kong so as to protect our home. Now, this legislative exercise has been a daunting task. We have a strong mandate in support of Article 23 legislation. Still, there have been attempts to interfere with our work. Some foreign politicians continue to smear us. The foreign media put up misleading headlines to try to sling mud on us. In fact, every day we continue to face national security threats, and this has posed a great burden on the work of the Bills Committee. I'm grateful to members of the Bills Committee as well as the administration for examining the bill for over 50 hours to ensure early completion of the legislative exercise. However, I must emphasize that haste makes no waste, because we have been able to examine the bill very carefully. Members of the Bills Committee and the administration came fully prepared for the work, and we completed the scrutiny with great efficiency. We need to have regard to the latest international developments so that a forward-looking and effective approach can be taken to target national security risks. Now, the Bills Committee members put forward over 1,000 questions on the bill. There were lengthy deliberations on details of the bill in terms of necessity, proportionality, as well as the availability of reasonable defense. We have deliberated on these matters thoroughly so as to address public concerns. so that on the one hand, the bill can effectively target the relevant national security offenses, and on the other hand, it can prevent members of the public being inadvertently caught by the law. I'm particularly grateful to Paul Lam, Secretary for Security, as well as Mr. Tang, Secretary for Security, for leading his team. The officials took much effort in explaining the bill to us. The bill safeguards the human rights and freedoms enshrined in the international covenants, and assets and investments in Hong Kong will continue to be protected. In terms of enforcement powers and investigation by the law enforcement agencies, the court will continue to be the gatekeeper so as to protect human rights and impose checks and balances on police powers. The administration has been able to offer easy-to-understand explanations of these complex legal concepts so that all the ideas seem accessible to the public. This can bring a lot of benefits in completing the NS legislation. Now, Deputy President, the legislative exercise is a good example of good interactions between the executive and the legislature. This is also one step towards improvement to the governance. The DAB supports the bill. With passage of the bill, we can now focus on economic growth and improving people's livelihoods so that we can scale new heights. I so submit. Mr. Im Kong. Now, this is the Article 23 legislation of the Basic Law that safeguards the rights and interests of our country in Hong Kong, and we have had 99% of support from the public. The Legislative Council worked seamlessly in scrutinizing the bill. Now, this bill is ready to be passed. This is in line with the international standards. It's a high-quality bill that can cater for the different demands. We've waited for over 26 years. The Article 23 legislative exercise is a good example of good interactions between the legislative and the executive. We work free from the fear of foreign forces. Now, as the Chinese New Year just passed, families stayed together to celebrate the important occasion. But what is important is that we need to make family reunions happen. Whereas in Hong Kong, we experienced the Black Hat riots in 2019. Hong Kong is an international city, and this is shame brought onto us. Well, if we're unable to resolutely safeguard national sovereignty, integrity, and interests, if we allow the anti-China destabilizing forces to get their way, then during the Opium War, Hong Kong was ceded to foreign forces, and Hong Kong people became second-class citizens in this colonial place. And a repeat of this incident could happen again, and we would be the ones to blame. Presidency emphasizes that national unity and stability is of paramount importance. It's been 26 years since Hong Kong's return to the motherland, and history tells us that the most important public interest is national security. Only when we safeguard national security would we be able to safeguard personal rights and interests. Mr. Xia Bolong, Director of the Hong Kong and Macau Work Office, visited Hong Kong, and he also agreed that national security is of utmost importance because a country is formed on the basis of thousands of homes. When in Gaza there is a conflict going on, and when people there are struggling only to get a sip of water, they are in the war zone. We must compete with time and complete the legislative exercise as quickly as possible so as to provide stability and prosperity to Hong Kong people. As the classic saying goes, it is true that we need to abide by the rule of law to achieve success in Hong Kong. Article 23 will bolster this good foundation. This can provide the soil for Hong Kong to thrive as an international city, a free port, so that and a major capital market in the world. We are all responsible for safeguarding national security. We must not be afraid of the obstacles in front of us. We must build a good foundation for the purpose of the rule of law in Hong Kong, so that we can focus on economic development, so that the Pearl of the Orient will continue to shine. I support the passage of the bill as well as all the amendments. I'd also like to thank everyone who have made their hard efforts in the legislative exercise. Mr. Louis Leung. Deputy President. Well, at the outset, I'd like to say that I give my full support to the Hong Kong SAR government in fulfilling the constitutional duty and proceeding with enacting legislation on Article 23 of the Basic Law, so as to establish and improve the relevant legal system on safeguarding national security. It's been more than 26 years since Hong Kong's return to the motherland. We have not been able to complete this exercise. The Black Hat riot lasted for over half a year in 2019, causing great damage to us. This revealed the shortcomings and inadequacies in safeguarding national security. This also demonstrates how Hong Kong people are unable to exercise their fundamental rights and freedoms in the face of the anti-China forces. The Safeguarding National Security Bill is a piece of legislation to plug national security loopholes and for the government to fulfill the constitutional duty. Reference has been made to the national security laws in different common law jurisdictions. The government has also given full regard to the actual circumstances in Hong Kong as well as public opinion. The bill provides safeguards to basic human rights and freedoms. It also safeguards certain criminal procedure principles, such as the principle of no double jeopardy, and as well as presumption of innocence. So a proper balance is struck between safeguarding national security and safeguarding human rights. The bill also provides for exceptions and defense for different offenses. The prosecution is also required to prove the mens rea of certain offenses to make sure that no members of the public will be caught inadvertently by the law. There are amendments put forward in light of the suggestions by the Bills Committee. For example, amendment will be made so as to remove the restriction for the Secretary for Security to impose restrictions on absconders 6 months after the abscondment. This will provide greater flexibility for the administration to deal with absconders. The administration will also be moving amendments to empower the Chief Executive in Council to make subsidiary legislation. There are also further rules and measures to be made to cope with unforeseen circumstances in relation to national security offenses. This is forward-looking. I give my support. There are views on the external interference offense, and that the provisions are drafted in such a way as to affect the international economic and cultural academic exchanges. The administration has proposed to rename the title to External Interference Endangering National Security to better reflect the legislative intent and to allay public concern. Deputy President, I support the passage of the bill. I will also be supporting the CSAs put forward by the administration so as to build a good legal basis for safeguarding national security, to ensure stability, prosperity of our society, and to adhere to the principle of one country, two systems, so that we can all chip in to build a better future for Hong Kong.
Mr. Benson Loke. Thank you, Deputy President. I'm a member of the Business and Professionals Alliance. I'm also the chairperson of the Youth Committee of the BPA. The BPA and the business community firmly support the legislation for Basic Law Article 23, and we fully support the passage of the Safeguarding National Security Bill to keep our country safe. This will ensure the long-term success of one country, two systems. I'm also a member of the Legco Panel on Security. I took part in the early scrutiny of the proposal of the bill. The government worked tirelessly and efficiently. I thank the government for its hard work. I also agree that the sooner we can get through the bill, the sooner we can keep our country safe. During the scrutiny, the government's rebuttal team countered false claims, especially smearing from foreign media. Our government's rebuttal team fought its corner, and we offered timely rebuttal. This also helped the public get a sense of the true picture, and that helps the public understand the bill. In future policy consultations, we should adopt a similar model. Meanwhile, the government also received constructive and practical suggestions, and the government has been responsive. I welcome the more comprehensive bill now. At the joint panel meeting on March 6th, in the consultation document, there is an offense on unlawful drilling. I wondered whether there would be exemptions. Young people may go on overseas trips and they take part in war games. Will these young people be caught inadvertently? And for people with dual nationality, those people may perform military service in overseas countries. I wondered whether there would be special arrangements. So the government responded by including clear exemptions under the offense of unlawful drilling. That makes the law easier to follow. With clear provisions, that means people, including young people, will not be caught by the law inadvertently. I was at a business lunch recently. A senior member from a multinational asked me whether this bill would affect their business operation. So I said, for those in legitimate business operations, this bill, once enacted, will have no impact on business. In fact, there will be an extra layer of protection. In the preamble of the bill, you can see the context and the reasons for this bill. Firmly, fully implementing one country, two systems, and also implementing the principle of Hong Kong people administering Hong Kong and high degree of autonomy. There will be protection for investments and property to keep Hong Kong a prosperous city. The bill has fully taken account of all the needs and the legitimate activities of business and academic circles in terms of overseas exchanges. This means the bill creates a more predictable and certain business environment for Hong Kong. The business circle also hopes that once this bill is passed, then we can all focus on economic development, and that will in turn help resolve deep-seated socio-economic issues and deliver a better life for people. I talk to youth groups, especially young professionals. Young people would like to see that with the passage of the bill, they can see the enduring success of one country, two systems. And this includes the regimes about professional sectors. When young professionals pursue their careers, they are in a better position to leverage their strength and help link up our country with the overseas. The BPA has been promoting the concept of national security among youth circles. in the future, we will continue to support education efforts on national security. We need laws in place to ensure prosperity. Once this bill is passed, we hope that we can then go from stability to prosperity. I'm most honored to be part of this development as we act together to keep our country safe. Deputy President, I so submit I support this Safeguarding National Security Bill and all the amendments from the government. Dr. Tik Chi-yun. Deputy President, I speak in support of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. People say this is a historic moment. I agree. With this bill, we can better protect our country. Once our country is safe, then we can act with greater assurance in pursuing our development. It's like we're finally spreading our wings and soaring to the skies. During the Bills Committee's deliberations, the government stressed that it would stick to the 2 international covenants on human rights so that there would be protection for human rights and other freedoms. This means the national security law and the Safeguarding National Security Bill will not affect the human rights and freedoms enjoyed by people in Hong Kong. The government has stated time and again that all sectors, and that includes the social welfare sector, the education and religious sectors, can maintain normal exchanges and collaborations with the international community. The government also agreed that there would be more education in the future to dispel myths about the national security legislation, and this can instill confidence in the community. And that's close to the heart of the social welfare sector. We have been groping in the dark for a long time. There has been too much infighting, and that has held back our community. People lost confidence in the future. But now we see clearer prospect. It's now put the tensions of the past behind, and now we should become resilient as we forge ahead. Our goal today is clear. We want to create a better living environment for our next generation. Getting through this bill is by no means the end point. It's a fresh start. We should start building a better future. And that's why the government must deliver. Legco should also do its job. People should stay confident. The work ahead will be more than just getting through this bill. The tasks will be more challenging. So this is no time to sit on our laurels or celebrate. We should be pleased about our prospect. I support this bill. I support the bill's early passage and gazetto so that afterwards the entire community can zero in on economic development and improve people's lives. Deputy President, I so submit I support this bill. Professor Chen Wing-kwong. Thank you, Deputy President. I'm very honored to be speaking on this bill, a bill that people have been looking forward to for 27 years. This bill is important to me. I'm the first member from the Chinese medicine sector. I also expressed the support from my sector for this bill. Love for one's country and voluntary actions to safeguard one's country, those are the obligations of Hong Kong's residents. Legislating for Article 23 has been our constitutional duty. Sadly, over the past 27 years, there were twists and turns. The job remained undone. Now there are more national security risks. We need to act fast in completing the legislation. I support this bill so that we can plug the loophole in our national security and we can keep our country safe. This bill deserves our full support. The bill sets out details clearly. It takes a targeted approach at national security offenses. It's targeted at forces seeking to disrupt Hong Kong and harm China. We also stick to the International Covenant on Human Rights. With this bill, people do not have to worry about inadvertently breaching the law. There are also protections for property and investments under the bill. This will reassure investors overseas. This bill can keep our country safe and help us stay a prosperous city. I believe everyone in Hong Kong supports this bill. In 2014, we saw the illegal Occupy Central movement, and then 2019 saw the Black Flag violence. People can deeply understand the harm caused by national security threat. So people all want to see the early passage of a bill to keep our country safe. An earlier consultation on this bill shows 98.6% of the respondents supported the bill. There were also suggestions to further improve the bill. Just a tiny fraction of people were against this bill. This means we now have a broad consensus on legislation to keep our country safe. The U.S. Consul General smeared this bill. People in Hong Kong are angry. The Chinese medicine sector is also angry. We staged a protest outside the U.S. Consulate General. A Chinese medicine practitioner in his 80s went there outside the U.S. Consulate General to express his dissatisfaction. So this shows people want to see this bill enacted. We speak for our people. I'm honored to speak on behalf of our people, and I support this bill. Once we complete this constitutional duty, and then we can focus on development and create a brighter future. Mr. Tang Fei.
Deputy President, I speak in support of the passage of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. This will address the national security loophole in Hong Kong, which lasted for 27 years. We have completed the scrutiny work of the bill in extraordinary speed. It shows the determination of the government and also the positive interplay between legislature and the executive branch. Members of the Legislative Council stood firm together in scrutinizing the bill so that Hong Kong can fulfill the obligation to uphold national security. At this historical moment, I'm honored to be here. We saw Occupy Central and the Mong Kok riots and Black Flag violence. We are still traumatized by these events. Among the rioters, there were a large number of teachers and students. Those with a conscience and who are patriotic in the education sector were saddened. Now, the national security risk exists. It is necessary to legislate for safeguarding national security. Legislation and education are the two pillars of national security. Now, we have a saying that we need to nurture morals in students. Now, patriotism is also a kind of moral we have to nurture. Now, there are also rules to be abided by. Now, the bill is based on the 528 decision as well as the Hong Kong National Security Law for Hong Kong to establish and improve the mechanism for safeguarding national security and plug any possible loophole. Now, we are making the net watertight. And also, the bill provides for schools to embellish the curriculum in terms of national security. We are educating the students to understand what the correct national security values are. With these requirements, we can ensure that young people will take it upon themselves to upholding national security. Now, to pass the bill as soon as possible, the government and the Legislative Council have moved in extraordinary speed, including calling for the Bills Committee and then gazettal of the bill. Now, today, we are resuming second reading debates for the bill. Now, this shows the determination of the government. The Legislative Council Bills Committee has been working over the weekend and late into the night so that the scrutiny work can be completed as soon as possible. Now, having scrutinized all the clauses, at the very same day, the Security Bureau introduced amendments. It shows how effective, how efficient our legislature and government are. Now, subject to the passage of the bill, we will reached an important milestone. We are laying a solid foundation for the sustained success of one country, two systems. And then in the future, the government can focus all its energy on improving the economy and add to the sense of gains of people. Thank you. Dr. Chang Meng-Kong, Deputy President, legislation for national security is a key part in legislation everywhere. Besides national defense and diplomacy and foreign affairs, national security laws are the major means to protect people's livelihood and property. It is the son and heir to the prosperity of a jurisdiction. Beginning from this year, the education university makes it a core subject for first-year students to learn national security. We educate students on the importance and necessity of national security from a historical perspective. Now, in the Safeguarding National Security Bill, now we are at the second reading and third reading stage. Like everyone in Hong Kong, I am emotional. Back in 1985, when the basic laws was being drafted, the drafting committee already consulted the public on legislation for Article 23. In 2003, because of external interference, infiltration, and incitement, the idea was despised by the public in Hong Kong. Now we are finally submitting our homework. We can live up to ourselves. Now I look forward to the bill, after which we can make good use of the measures stipulated in the law so that we can become the gatekeeper for the country's southern gateway. Me and my team have been paying attention to the remarks made by Western governments on Article 23. They smear that Hong Kong will lose its freedom will lose many freedom as well as the rule of law. Now, however, if you look at the US, there are at least 21 pieces of legislation on national security, UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand. They have a lot of national security laws. And Singapore, which we always make comparison with, they have 6. Now, compared with other jurisdictions, their legislation also carry extraterritorial effects. Now, in this bill, we only have extraterritorial effects for 2 parts of the bill. It is reasonable. We don't need them. We don't need Western countries to lecture us on this. Now, in other countries, they have very draconian laws on national security offenses, but they are smearing our efforts and asking us to abandon our efforts. It's like a battle, but they are asking us to lay down our arms so that they can attack us however they want. Now, the new China has been established for 75 years. We are not unlike the Qing dynasty, we are a strong country. Now, we need to legislate for Article 23 as soon as possible, and we have to ensure that the law is operable and also comprehensive. This is in line with the interests of everyone in Hong Kong. Now, at present, we only have the Hong Kong National Security Law, which only targets 4 kinds of offenses. Now, these offenses are scattered in offenses under the Crimes Ordinance and Criminal Procedures Ordinance. And also, these are offenses in relation to the conventional national security areas, but not cybersecurity and so on. If you look at the UK's National Security Act 2023 and also Information Security Act of the Canada, and also the US President's direction on data security, and also amendments to the National Security Law of Australia 2018. Looking at these examples, you can see that the Western powers have already included elements of commerce, economy, and financial services into national security areas. They have also introduced sabotage of offense against public infrastructure. This is not limited to physical attacks, but also virtual attacks on computers and systems. Now, these are all relevant references to be made in legislating for our own law. Now, the Security Bureau and the DOJ have taken on board many suggestions made by the public, including Clause 28. State secrets include secrets concerning the economic and social development of Hong Kong and the country. And also there is the sabotage offense against attack on infrastructure. Now, in my opinion, our Safeguarding National Security Ordinance is in line with international standards, which can also protect the livelihood of people in Hong Kong as well as business in Hong Kong. I support the third reading of the bill. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, President. As many members said, this is one of the most important moments since the reunification with the country. This is the last stretch of mile before we pass the Article 23. Now, I support the government in upholding its constitutional obligation, and I support second reading and third reading of the bill. The bill has finished scrutiny in a short period of time. It highlights the commitment shown by this term of the government. It also showcased that under the improved electoral system, the benefits brought about by the positive interplay between the executive and the legislative branch. Now, since right off the bat, the government has submitted a high-quality bill. They have also made tremendous contribution in scrutinizing the bill. Members of the Bills Committee have raised valid questions. Now, the Bills Committee has spent 50 hours on scrutinizing the bill so that the public can understand the contents, the policy intents, and the considerations behind the bill. After the gazetting of the bill, the Chief Executive said we have to seize every moment in passing the bill as soon as possible. Now, in the past 2 months, we have seen external forces interfering with our internal affairs. The West has launched a smearing campaign from consulate general as well as chambers of commerce, even parliamentarians. They have been smearing our efforts. It shows that external threat is still there. National security risk is always here. There is urgency and necessity for the law. After passage of the bill today, the next step is to enhance the awareness of national security among the public. National security is the cornerstone of development and the premise for Hong Kong's success. We need the public to pool their efforts to uphold national security. In schools and in the community, we have to make sure that the people understand its importance, as well as the national security risk that Hong Kong is facing. We have to start from a young age. Young people must be educated on national affairs so that they take pride in their country. They have to know that they are the masters of their country. They have to develop a sense of belonging to the country so that they will participate in the efforts to uphold national security. Writing on this historical moment, I would like to speak from the perspective of a father. I have a young child. The child was born in the second half of year 2019. That was the peak of the black-clad violence. At the time, people were afraid. There were lots of negative reports on the media. From prenatal check and on the day of delivery, we were constantly in fear. As a novice father, I was very worried. When my family members flew to Hong Kong to see the baby, they were stranded in the airport. There were rioters everywhere in the airport. I can't forget those days, and I had personal experience on the importance of national security and its impact on my family. Now, with the passage of the bill People in Hong Kong and in the country will be protected. Now we can focus on economic developments and nurturing our youth. Thank you.
Ms. Judy Chen. Thank you, President. First of all, I feel honored to be able to be part of this historic moment today. I am in support of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. I also thank the Hong Kong SAR government for showing resolve and working with the legislature so as to build a better Hong Kong so that the public aspirations can be met. Hong Kong is one of the important windows for our country to the world. Against geopolitical tensions happening at this moment, we face different complex challenges day in, day out. This shows the importance of ensuring stability and prosperity and safeguarding national security in Hong Kong. In order to make sure that one country, two systems can sail smoothly, we all need to work on the basic protections for people's livelihood and to ensure stability and prosperity. Black-clad violence in 2019 is a hard lesson for all. National security is of utmost importance in protecting our homes. Now, legislating on Article 23 of the Basic Law is a constitutional duty of our government. We should also establish and improve the legal system and enforcement mechanism to plug national security loopholes so as to protect the national interests. Apart from protecting the sovereignty, national or territorial integrity, we also need to safeguard development interests of the country. For a long time since Hong Kong's return to the motherland, those with ulterior motive deploy different tactics to mislead our younger generation so that they have a distorted understanding of our country and there is disharmony in our society. Some young people were indoctrinated about within negative impressions of the country. We need to enhance publicity to instill the correct values in our younger generation. Now, with national security measures put in place, we can all educate our younger generation about safeguarding national security so that we can enhance the awareness of the younger generation on safeguarding national security. We should all work together to enhance public awareness and make sure that the correct understanding prevails in our society. We need to continue to raise the public's awareness on national security and enhance nationhood. That means different sectors of the community should all work together to make Hong Kong a safer and more stable place to ensure our safety as well as prosperity. Professor Priscilla Leung. President, I speak in support of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. I'm a member of the Basic Law Committee. I've also taught the Constitution and Basic Law in the City University of Hong Kong for 26 years. Let me explain the intention of Article 23 of the Basic Law. At the drafting stage, there were divergent views. Some were of the view that the national security law should directly apply to Hong Kong through Annex 3 of the Basic Law. Some other views suggested that local legislation should be enacted instead so that in light of challenges in court, it can be interpreted by way of local legislation. Hong Kong and Macau are the only exceptions as special administrative regions to enact local legislation as a region on national security. It shows that the central authorities have a high degree of trust in us. There is also great resolve for national security law to be put in place. The central authorities have actually waited for many years for this to happen, and we must cherish the chance. Article 23 of the Basic Law is in line with international human rights standards. Some say that it undermines human rights, but this is not true. For those familiar with international laws, International Convenance on Civil and Political Rights, Article 19 provides that that the rights and freedoms of an individual should be protected. But at the same time, in light of public order, public hygiene, and public moral, etc., suitable restrictions can be put in place. In 1984, the Judicial Committee promulgated the Syracuse Principles to further confirm the above principles. This legislative exercise is a good enactment that can protect the lives and property of our people. For those who have experienced the 2019 Black Hat Clad violence, Hong Kong became a lawless place because of lack of national security law. People risk their lives going to work and going to school. Now, the bill provides safeguards for international investors. Article 2 provides that one country, two systems should be the overarching principle, and the International Conference on Civil and Political Rights, as well as economic, social, and cultural rights, should prevail. These are suitable human rights safeguards. I think this legislative exercise demonstrates the implementation of the comprehensive national security outlook put forward by President Xi. There is also a high degree of convergence, compatibility within Hong Kong national security law. Against a backdrop of advancement in technology, we have now established a legal system that can safeguard not only national security but international investments. The government has fulfilled its duty diligently. They have had regard to the views put forward by the community in the past 26 years. Now, I also put forward some suggestions. For example, in terms of the defense and extraterritorial effects, there should be, and as well as the catch-all provisions, I see that these suggestions have been incorporated in the bill. My fourth point is that this bill also entails an educational effect. Now, in Singapore, in 2021, the Anti-External Interference Act was passed. In UK, there was also a similar act, and also the Patriotic Act passed in the US. They are all much more stringent than our bill. Now, with the completion of this legislative exercise, we know where the lines are drawn, and this is good public education. In 2009, after national security legislation was enacted in Macau, 2009, nobody was ever prosecuted. Everybody knows the boundaries. This is also a historic moment. As Ding Xueqiang said, we should have enacted legislation on Article 23 of the Basic Law much earlier. It's been 26 years. It's a major national security loophole. We must not continue to drag on our feet. Today, we are going to pass the bill. Not only should we enact this piece of legislation, we should do it with pride so that we can tell the world and tell everyone in our country that this is a high-quality bill. This is a bill that is in line with the international laws, international human rights standards and practices. This can help safeguard people's lives and property, and this can also provide a better investment and business environment for all. This should be respected by and supported by the international community. The 7th term of the Legislative Council will be completing this historic mission, and I feel proud Mr. Robert Lee. I speak in support of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. Legislating on Article 23 of the Basic Law is the government's constitutional duty. The May 28th decision was adopted by the NPC in 2020. It sets out the basic principles. It also sets out the position of our country on this matter. And then in June 2020, the Hong Kong NSL was adopted and annexed in the Basic Law.